Good.
So we're joined by my friends, published author, HR professional, former Velma Jackson parent of two proud graduates of Velma Jackson, Angela Murray. We thank you so much for joining us today. We've got a room full here with us at Velma Jackson High School. And we're recording this for all of our friends in Madison County Schools, Madison Central, Ridgeland High School, Germantown High School, the Academic Option Center, and our YouTube channel. So thank you so much for taking some time for us in our personal finance class today.
Absolutely. I appreciate you inviting me, and I am definitely happy to be of any help I can.
Awesome. Now, before we get into what all it is you do and what you look for, just give us a brief rundown of your background. I know you went to Luther Branson. You didn't graduate from Velma Jackson, but you do have some roots
Right.
in the Falcon Zone. Just give us just a brief rundown of your background and your education.
Yeah, for sure. So, um, like you said, I have roots in the Camden community, in the Farm Haven community. I actually grew up in Farm Haven, so I did go to Luther Branson. And of course, at that time that I was attending Luther Branson, it stopped at fifth grade. So then I made the transition to Velma Jackson. Velma Jackson was K through 12 at that time. I started in sixth grade. I left Velma Jackson in seventh grade and I went to Jackson Public School System. So I started at Chastain Middle School and I ended at Callaway High School back in 1999. So even though I am not officially a Velma Jackson alum, my heart is there. I sent my hearts there because I sent my children there, and all three of them graduated from Velma Jackson. My three older daughters, they graduated from Velma Jackson.
Yeah, and one of them has been a guest of ours and is at Tuskegee and a former salutatorian. So great, great precedent there as well. Now, and I know you're a published author, and which is all that is that's a whole nother wormhole. But we really want to talk
Yeah,
about today. You've been an HR pro for I don't know how many years now.
it's been a
Um,
lot of years.
yeah, and even though this is, this is personal finance, part of personal finance is securing that career and having resume skills, interview skills, knowing how to find jobs, knowing what people are going to look for. Because I hear kids say all the time, I want to work at XYZ. Well, the first person they're going to deal with is someone in your position.
That's
So,
right.
so take us through when, as an HR person, what are the things that you're looking for first? Because before anybody comes in the door, there's things that you guys are going to know about them that I don't think these kids realize.
Yeah. You know what? I often see that when people come into the HR office, they're prepared on paper, but they are not prepared logistically. So the resume is what is going to get our attention, but once you walk in the door, that is when the selection process really starts. So it's going to start from the way you present yourself as soon as you walk in, whether or not you are late for your interview, whether you have the right dress, right? And the dress should be according to the position that you are going for or where you want to be in that company. When you sit down and you introduce yourself, we are evaluating that. We are evaluating the whole person. So definitely, I have seen a lot of gaps in these last, maybe the last eight to 10 years. There have been a lot of gaps in the way that candidates come into the office, the way they present themselves, the things that they find acceptable. And I always try to emphasize that, this is the place that you're going to sell yourself in the HR office because you can't get any further into the company if you don't come through HR.
Yeah, because that's what people don't realize is that the HR pros are the gatekeepers. Somebody in a specific department is going to be very upset with the HR people if somebody falls through the cracks that shouldn't be there. And I
That's
think and I'm glad you mentioned that in the last 8, 10 years because kids here always think I'm picking on them. I'm not picking on our particular school. I'm picking on our particular generation because it's
exactly.
more, I like following celebrities too. There's a lot of celebrities and sports teams I like, but if you're buried in your phone all the time, I think kids start to lose social skills and little things like walking in a room and introducing yourself, shaking hands with everybody at the table, saying, "Hi, my name is whatever." Somebody may not know who you are because somebody may have called you for the interview and then called them in to interview with them. And then
Yeah.
little thing, and I think I can speak for all the other teachers as well. Part of this class is we have presentations about talking about certain financial and
Mhm.
career topics, and it's not, and I think you guys as HR people, you want people who can speak. I tell kids all the time, speak up. I can't hear you. You got to be confident. You got to be able to sell. You got to be able to know what you're talking about, and you got to be professional in doing so.
Yeah, definitely. And then what I like to emphasize to kids is HR, the HR skills that you learn, presenting yourself to HR, all these skills are transferable. So even if you're looking at your favorite celebrity, if you are looking at your favorite TV star, they still have that you're seeing the final product, but they have still had to gone through the process. They have still had to make the introductions. They have still had to show themselves qualified. They have still had to be on time for those meetings. They have had to sell themselves to someone in order for that person to be willing to invest in them and to bring them in. So it doesn't matter what field you're in. Every field is a company. And companies are looking for someone who are going to make them money. They want to make sure that you are going to represent them well, and that you are also going to be able to speak up when things are not right. They are looking for your innovation. And if you are coming in and you are just assimilating, then that is not the kind of people that we are looking for. So when you come into an HR, when you come in for an interview, you need to show how you are going to be an asset to that company. Your resume tells us what you can do, but when you come in, we want to know how you are going to do the things that are on that resume. Your resume needs to have impact statements, and when you come into the office, you need to expound on those impact statements. How have you been an asset in the past? How are you going to transfer that to our company? We are looking at 500 candidates a day, and sometimes for one role we are going through 125, 150 resumes. So
Wow.
you are going to have to stand out some way. You can't fall through the cracks. And the funny thing is, it's a little bit easier now for people to stand out because we don't have a lot of standouts. There are not a lot of stars that come through our company. So it's easier for you to stand out. All you need to do is be prepared beforehand. Preparation is the key. You can't walk into any opportunity without preparation.
Yeah, and I tell the story all the time, and honestly, I would not have believed it if I didn't see it. I literally, when I was working at LSU, we had a position open that several people had applied for. This woman was pretty qualified, and she walked in the door, and we had a couple positions open. And she goes, "Yeah, I'm here for the interview." And I said, "Oh, that's great. Who are you interviewing with?" And she looked me right in the face and said, "I don't know. Let me go check." So right there,
Oh, wow.
right from the beginning, she cost herself the job. So doing research about know who you're going to meet with. If you don't know, you can call. Nobody's going to get upset if you call and say, "Hey, I have an interview at this time tomorrow. I just need to know who I need to ask for."
That's oftentimes, most of the time, HR professionals, when we are inviting you into an interview, we are going to have the person that you need to speak with in the email. Most communication now is by email. Rarely do we only use a phone call. Even if we do call you, we are going to follow up with an email because we are a function of documentation. So we like to have things written down so that we can reference. So just go back to that email, see who you're going to be speaking with, and if there is no one there in the email that you're supposed to speak with, call that out. That is probably, that shows your attention to detail. That is a good way for you to be a standout. You can just simply call and say, "Hi, I noticed that there was not an interviewer listed in my email. Who would I be speaking with tomorrow?" Right? And that is a good way to call attention to yourself because we sometimes, we're people in HR. Sometimes we make mistakes. And then that is a good way for you to say, "Hey, I am very much attentive. I am very committed to this process. I do want to be on time and I do want to be prepared."
Yeah. And another thing that I think a lot of teenagers miss is that before they even get there, in fact, weeks and days before, HR more than likely has done some vetting and knows what they're all about. And I've even had HR people say, "Look, we're looking on the security camera when you walk in the door. If you're driving crazy in the parking lot, if you're acting a fool in the hallway, and then if you're posted a bunch of crazy stuff online, you can think it's private. It's going to be found." And those are huge red flags.
Yeah, your social presence now more than ever, it speaks a lot to the person. If we can't find a social presence, it's actually a turnoff. Like we are looking because everybody has a social media account now. So if we can't find your social presence, sometimes it signals to us there is something that you are trying to hide. You're not
Wow.
transparent. Maybe your views are counterproductive. Maybe your views don't match our organization's strategic directive. And we need to be able to vet those views. We need to be able to see if this is going to be a fit. We're not just looking for the fit as far as skills and knowledge. We are looking for a cultural fit as well. I mean, this is not something that's always talked about. We want a cultural
Oh,
fit, but we don't want somebody to that is going to come in and upset the organization. We do want people who are innovative, but we need you to be innovative within boundaries, right? So
yeah.
we want to make sure that if you are coming into the organization, it is going to be productive for us and it's not going to set us back. Talent is our most expensive resource. When we
Yep.
lose talent, it takes a lot of time from HR. It takes time from the hiring managers. We have to invest in training. There's an orientation process. So when we hire the wrong person, there are big implications. And that falls on HR because that's what we do. So HR is going, like you mentioned, we are the gatekeepers, and it is really important for us to get it right. And sometimes it may feel like we're being a little bit too picky, but that it's a part of our job. And if we're not doing our job, then we won't have a job. So it's just very important for us to get things right in the beginning. So we're looking for your social presence. We're looking for what your resume says. We are checking those references. We want to make sure that we're presenting someone to our hiring managers that is going to make a difference to our organization.
Absolutely. Now, two things that are big pet peeves of mine, and I cannot stress both of these enough as far as when somebody's in an interview. Because a few years ago, I got a former student of mine to interview, and I thought he was a great person for this place to hire. And they called me immediately and said he was terrible. And they were like, all he did was badmouth his former employer. He was in there saying they didn't know what they were doing. That's why I quit. And I'm like, look, you can have a bad job. Everybody's had a bad job, but there's ways to be in an interview without just running down somebody that you used to work for. Because again, that's something that's going to get somebody in the no pile immediately.
Yeah, you are absolutely right. Bad mouthing your former employer is a red flag to us. Now, we have all worked in organizations that were not a fit for us. It could have been that the was not a fit for us. It could have been that the culture, the safety culture, all of those things could not have been a
Yeah.
fit for us. But there is a way to express that. You can just simply say, my direction for my career in the company's direction were not aligned. And I had to part from that company. That's enough, right? That's enough to explain why you left an organization. Sometimes we want to dive a little deeper just to make sure that, there's nothing problematic. But the most that we're going to ask, maybe whether or not you left on your own accord, right? Sometimes we want to know that, but no one is really digging into what happened. Give us blow by blow details. We don't want to know that, right? We just want to account for your career history. That's it.
Absolutely. And again, it could show, and you talk about the culture of the company. It could show that somebody can be bad for the culture, even if they're talented, even if they have all the attributes you look for. If they're gonna come in there with a negative attitude, it can affect the entire company, big or small.
Yeah, absolutely. It's important. One way that I think the biggest way to create equitable systems is to build it into the infrastructure. So when you come into an organization, we want to see that you are aligned with that you are aligned with the organization's strategic goals. You understand the importance of creating equity in our systems, that you are committed to that you have a good understanding of the processes and the policies, and those policies that we feel create an equitable system are what we put in place. So we don't want you to violate those policies. And that's basically just what we're looking for.
Yeah, and that's a great segue to what I wanted to talk about next, because another huge pet peeve of mine, and again, this is something I would not have believed if I had not have seen it. When I
Hmm.
was doing some interviews on a college campus several years ago, I actually had people come in there. in the interview and they had no idea what the job was. So doing your research ahead of time. And then I always say, when somebody interviewing you in a job interview ask you at the end, do you have any questions? The answer 0% of the time is no. You need to have something, even if it's the same 3, 4 you have every time you interview with somebody. You need to have something ready, ready and prepared that makes it at least look like you've done your research about what's going to be, what this job is all about.
Absolutely. So I always tell my daughters at the end of an interview, when someone asks you if you have questions, a good rule of thumb is to ask, what is this position going to look like in the next 6 months?
There you
What
go.
are
That's a
the
good one.
objectives that this person would be aiming for within the next 90 days? Right? So that shows that you're being thoughtful. It shows that you are invested. It shows that you want to understand how you are going to contribute to the role. And then also, this is something that you need to know. You need to understand what you're going to be responsible for. You need to understand when you're walking into the role, what they are going to be expecting of you. And then you also need to understand, what is the forecast of this job? How is it going to fit into my career development? Does it fit into my career development? When you're going into a job interview, the employer they are evaluating you, but you are also evaluating them. It's okay to walk away from a job sometimes. It may not be a good fit with you. You have your personal priorities, and it is okay for those personal priorities to take precedent. You just need to make sure that you can also take care of yourself when you are putting your personal priorities in the front.
Yeah, and other things like you can ask about what are some opportunities for advancement after a certain amount of time? What qualities are you guys looking for? I've noticed this on your website. Can you tell me more about this program you guys do? Things like that that show that you not only have initiative, but show that you really have a desire to move up in a field.
Researching a company's website is the biggest way that you can, first of all, you can find out like what that company stands for. You can find out, what the employees have to say. A lot of times they have employees highlight, so you can evaluate the culture there. You can see how engaged the employees are. You can see how the organization supports the employees or whether or not they support the employees. So researching a company's website is a good way for you to go into the interview armed and ready. You can get from there which jobs are open. You can ask, I see that there are several jobs open. Is the organization undergoing a merger or an acquisition? Or I see that there are several jobs open. Is there an issue with turnover? All of these kind of things can just come from the website, what the organization plans to do. You can see past events that they've had. You can ask about those past events, how they went. So many things that you can get from a company's website. So if you want to be prepared for an interview, that is the place to start.
Now, just a couple more things before I get to the students' questions. First of all, we'd be remiss if we didn't mention that you have written a book about the HR exam prep. So just tell us real briefly what led you to become an author, and now you have your book for sale on everywhere books are sold.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess what led me to it is I have young people. I have young people in my home, or at that time while I was writing the book, I had young people in my home and I was preparing them for the world. And they had a lot of questions. Their friends came to me with a lot of questions, and I could see that they were not prepared. Also, I have lots of junior coworkers who are studying for HR, and there was a gap there, and it needed to be filled. And I needed to write something down so that people can come along and actually have something tangible that they can reference when they are trying to break into HR. HR can be a hard field to break into because it is policy driven, it is data driven, it is evidence based decision making, and sometimes it is difficult for people to reconcile that if you haven't been in this field. Just the confidentiality of it, the need for documentation, sometimes it can be off putting for people. And so I wanted to put it into a practical step by step guide so that people can break in. And then also HR has what is called SHRM exams and HRCI exams, which certify HR professionals. those exams are traditionally very difficult for HR professionals to receive certification in. And so I wanted to make sure that I was able to prepare HR professionals for that as well.
Absolutely. And you mentioned something there, and that's the last thing I want to talk about before I get to the students' questions, is you talked about people breaking into HR. Why should these young people of any background really consider getting into this? Because look, we had an article written about us in Mississippi Free Press last semester about, for a long time, a lot of communities were left out of opportunities. And it was because of there was no networking opportunities, because it was just the same people and same families being recycled in industries. But times have changed a lot, and we need more diversity in this field, just like we need diversity in all of these workforces. So why should some of these females, some of these international students, our kids here at Velma Jackson, why should they really consider getting into this field? Because we desperately need every seat at the table to make sure everybody gets a fair chance, and every policy in these workplaces is fair for everyone.
Yeah, you make a good point. I think I mentioned before, the reason I broke into HR really is, for me, it is important. I feel like the only way to create an equitable system is to have an equitable foundation. And in order to do that, we have to be in the room with the decision makers. And that's what HR is. We are sitting right next to the organization's leaders. Most of the time, we are one of the organization's leaders. So that when decisions are made that are discriminatory or that are biased, we can challenge those decisions, and we can mandate that there is some evidence that supports that decision. And so that we have something to reference, so that there is a blueprint for people to follow, and so that organizations leaders are not just making decisions that don't make sense for the organization. People have lots of biases that they're not aware of.
There you
And
go.
unless you are sitting in the room to say, hey, that could be a cultural thing. Let's dig a little bit deeper into that. Or maybe this could be their first time here. Let's dig a little bit deeper into that. Unless we are sitting there, we are not going to be able to make the changes that are necessary for us to see the diversity that we want to see. HR is only 14% Black. We need more professionals. We need more Black HR professionals to come into this organization, because, again, HR has a lot of influence in the organization. We are the people who create the policies. We create the processes, right? We are the foundation of the organization. We have a lot of influence there. And when we have people, when the organization's leaders is not diverse, decisions can only be made one way. So we have to have that diversity, right, at the table, so that we can say, hey, let's think about this, guys. Let's think about this from a different perspective. Like, we can't blame anybody if we are not there.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned that. You said a lot of people have biases they don't even know they have. Last year, we had an author of a book in Alabama called uh, Unconscious, Unconscious Algorithms. And she mentioned the same thing. She said, look, I'm not saying people are racist. I'm not saying people have evil in their heart. But if you don't have every perspective when you're making decisions, people are going to fall through the cracks. And when it comes to people being paid fairly, when it comes to people getting, certain things for medical reasons and things like that, some people may not realize that there is a medical issue in certain cultures. You know,
Yeah,
I'm sure
that
I don't
it
know them all, but that's why you need everybody at the table to make sure everybody in the workforce is treated fairly.
Yeah, definitely. It's what I do every day outside of my 9 to 5 job. I am also an HR consultant. So businesses call me in when their employees are not engaged, or when their organization is failing, and I audit their processes. A lot of times, I often have to ask, can you tell me why this person is being paid this much and this person is being paid this much, right? With all things being equal, them working in the same environment, where is the gap in the pay? And sometimes it is just an unconscious. I mean, look, we all have biases. We have biases toward, the people who go to church with us, or the people we graduated high school with, right? We all are going to show some favor. But so it's very important for us to have people who can check us, who can say, okay, so why are you making this decision over that decision? And it's a lot of times it's not malicious. It just lives
Yeah.
within us. You know,
Yeah.
when I am reading resumes, when I can't tell you how many times I've looked at a resume and saw a Tuskegee graduate, and just because my daughter is at Tuskegee, it catches my eye, right? Because I'm familiar with that. Or if I see Velma Jackson, it catches my eye because I'm familiar with that. But it is our job to check ourselves then and say, but does this person actually have what I'm looking for? Am I truly making the fair choice here?
Absolutely. Well, I do have a couple of questions from the students. This first one is Shania Smith. She's in 10th grade, one of our volleyball players here. And she asked, do you have any advice for anyone who wanted to get into HR after high school?
Yeah, I do have some advice. Um, the I want to remind everybody that there are always transferable skills. So even if you have never thought about HR, you have never been in HR, you don't have any experience in HR, you have some experience in something. HR is a field that, we a lot of the times it is a lot of attention to detail. It is a lot of organization. So if you have been playing on your volleyball team, that translates to a collaborative team environment, right? So you are part of a team. You are going to be working into an HR team. You just need to spin that to tell us how your experience working in a collaborative team is going to benefit our organization. So that's the first thing. Make sure that you are just looking inward in your experience, whatever it is, and then transferring that into HR. And then also make your desire to be in HR known. Go on LinkedIn, message some people and say, hey, I'm a young professional, I'm looking to break into HR, would you mind being my mentor? I tell everybody to always start with asking, will you be my mentor? Don't ask people to put in a good word for you. People are much more willing to lead you than help you. So
Yeah,
asking them if they would be your mentor, and then they will start to speak up for you, right? When there are opportunities that come along, they will say, hey, I have this great mentee. She is progressing well, and I would like to introduce you to this person.
that's awesome. We got so many good segues. It's unbelievable. This is Levon Johnson. He's also in 10th grade. And you mentioned about things you see on the resume. And he asked, when I put my resume in for a job application, what is the first thing that is noticed by a HR professional?
The first thing it noticed is the impact, right? If you are showing impact statements on your resume. So a lot of times people list their tasks, they list their job duties, but they don't show how their tasks and job duties advance the organization. So I don't want to see, if you worked as a cashier, I don't want to see that you scan groceries, that you put up stock. I don't want to see that on your resume. What I want to see is scan groceries at a rate of X, Y, and Z, which cut down customer wait time by 10%. That
There you
shows
go.
that you have done the job and it helps the organization. So that's the first thing that we noticed. And then, we also notice formatting, right? We just, just making sure that it's easy for us to understand, because again, I'm reading 100 resumes a day. I'm not going to spend a lot of time. If your resume is all messy, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it because there's so many other things I have to do.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned about putting specific numbers and percentages and years, amounts of time. The other thing that just irks me to death when I'm grading these resumes is when some kid puts, I am good at this. Good according to who?
Yeah.
Never subjective, always concrete.
Yeah, you have to show us what makes you good at it, because good is different from different people. Good to you may mean you did it 5 times, and good to me means you did it 55. So who's to say you're good at it? I need to know what you did well so that I can determine if you're good at it for my organization.
Absolutely. I just got one more. This is Christopher Maxwell. He's also in 10th grade. And he asked, what are the most common interview questions I need to prepare for?
Well, the interview questions actually they vary by the job, and then they're going to vary by the hiring manager. Some hiring managers are very technical, and they want to, actually ask behavioral questions like, "What have you done in the past that is similar to what we do here. And then some hiring managers, they allow you to lead and to really just showcase what your talent is. I say be prepared for both. So one of the most commonly asked interview questions, and sometimes that gets people, most of the time, this is the one that gets people caught up, is why do you want to join this organization? Right.
Ooh.
And that's it's a difficult question for a lot of candidates to ask. And then it's kind of difficult to prepare for because it, again, depends upon the hiring manager. But actually, the answer to that question is really just to be honest. Show, tell what interests you about the position, and then tell the interviewer how you are going to make an impact in the position. Right. So that's the answer. But most of the time, that's the question that people fumble on a lot.
Yeah, and the last thing you need to say is, I just need a job.
Definitely don't say that.
Yeah,
And
and again, people used to tell me that all the time, and then they wonder why I wouldn't hire them. I'm like, because you just telling me you just want a paycheck. I need somebody that actually wants to work here.
yeah, we've had people to say, because y'all are hiring, or because I want the job, but of course, that's not going to get you further in the interview process, and definitely won't get you the second interview, and probably won't get you the job.
All right, I'm waiting on one more question. He came in late. We're getting ready to wrap up, but I'm letting him write a question real quick.
Okay.
Um, I'm gonna pause it real quick.
Okay.
All right, so this is Edward Flowers, 10th grade, member of our band here, and he asked, how many hours a week does an HR professional usually put in outside of the normal working hours?
Well, you know what? The good thing about that is with the introduction to Gen Z, which we are so grateful for because a lot of us older millennials, we didn't have people telling us it's okay to create a work-life balance. So with the introduction of Gen Z, we are really able now to stick to our 40 to 50-hour weeks. But before then, and especially if I am a member of a senior HR, and so a lot of the times the problems don't escalate to me until they're completely out of control. But for some of our junior HR representatives, they get called in over the weekend, like if there is an injury, because HR also handles like a lot of the documentation. So if there is an injury, if there is a termination, a lot of times we get called in for that. So a lot of the junior HR professionals, they are easily putting in 50 to 60 hours a week.
Wow. Well, we're almost out of time, and we thank you so much for joining us and taking some time for us. But before we go, we got to know, as all these kids get ready to get out of high school, maybe go to college or not go to college, all of them are going to be looking for these jobs. What are some skills they can work on right now to be great candidates to get the career they want?
Yeah. So some of the skills that you can work on when you come into an interview, you can start working on complete sentences. Questions in interviews should never be yes or no, right? Yes, because of this. No, because of this. You need to work on your time management. You want to make sure that traffic does not make you late for the interview. You want to leave in enough time that if small things happen, you're still not late for the interview. You want to work on your eye contact. Not asking you to, give someone the death stare, but we do want to make sure that you feel confident and that you are looking, you're looking your interviewer in the eye, and you are explaining to them why you are the best fit. And also, you need to start researching what constitutes business dress, business casual, and casual dress, because most of the time interviewers are going to tell you this is business professional, or this is business casual, or this is casual, and you need to know what that means so that when you walk in, you are not overdressed or you are not underdressed. It may sound minor, but this is a way for us to understand, whether or not you follow instructions, and if you don't know, if you did the research to find out.
Absolutely. Well, again, Such great stuff, so important, and it's just I really hope our kids are getting something because it's so hard already. They need to have a leg up on all these applicants for these great careers. So again, we thank you so much for joining us. One of our great Falcons On parents, Angela Murray. We thank you again for taking some time for us today.
You're welcome. Again, thank you for having me. I love the opportunity to talk to young people because this is where it starts, right? And so even if you are not preparing to go to college, I just want you to be prepared to walk into the working world, because not everybody goes to college.
Absolutely. Well, again, thank you so much for joining us. I know you got a busy schedule. I'll talk to you soon, my friend.
All right, thank you.
See ya.